Oh, okay. Thank you, Catherine. So, again, thanks for the kind invitation from the conference committee. Thanks, Catherine. Thanks, Professor Yang. I've been already with you on the other day at the pre-conference session, tutorial session, but that was more on the tutorial perspective on medical robotics. But today, I will be more focusing on my own research. So my name is Shuangyi. As Catherine already introduced, I'm now working in Chinese Academy of Sciences Institute of Automation, which is known as CASIA. Before I joined my current institute, I've been studying and working in School of Biomedical Engineering Imaging Sciences in King's College London. So the topic of today that I'm going to introduce you is about our development story of automatic ultrasound robot for diagnosis and procedure guidance. So as the title of our session is about robotics and medical imaging, so I intentionally changed my title to reflect that. So at the very beginning of my presentation, I would like to very briefly introduce myself and also about my research. So at the time when I was in King's, I was working on imaging analysis, surgical guidance, and 3D printing. Specifically, I'm a robotic person, so I've been taking the leading role in developing many different robots, especially for ultrasound application. Since from the end of last year, I came back to my home country, China. I joined Chinese Academy of Sciences. Probably you guys are not that familiar with this institute. In general, we are one of the institute that is very dedicated to AI and robotics. According to the field-weighted citation impact in AI from Scopus, we rank at number 7 in the world among those top universities like MIT, SMU. So in here, we have been working on several different robots. Just going to show some of the example. For example, this is a catheter robot to deliver catheter into a coronary artery for the cardio interventional procedure. And this is a rehabilitation robot that we're developing here. It's already a commercial ready product. And since I returned, I managed to set up a small new research lab, more focusing on diagnostic robots. So in today's presentation, I'm going to introduce you 3 robots that I have been working on in the last few years. The first one is an intraoperative device, which is a robotic transesophageal ultrasound system. The second one is more like a conventional arm-based system for early stage fetal scanning. And the last one is more like an anthropomorphic robot to mimic human motion, which can hold 2 different ultrasound probes. So we call them dual probe automatic ultrasound system. So let's begin with the transesophageal robot. This is the final rendering of the robot that we developed. The clinical background of that comes from the cardio interventional procedure, as you can see from the left picture on the slides. During this type of procedure, because it is a minimally invasive surgery, you need imaging guidance. And the typical 2 types of imaging that you need, one is X-ray, which can give you really good visualization of the 2. At the same time, you may need to use ultrasound because ultrasound can give you a really good visualization of the soft tissue. However, during the procedure, because of the combining use of the 2 devices, the operator, they are exposed to radiation, which means they are working in a hazardous environment. And because of that, they need to wear the protection light, which is very uncomfortable and bulky. And we also noticed that in order to become an expert, you need to do lots of scanning and practice. So therefore, we were thinking, why don't we build a robot which can replace our operator and be located in the operating room. So here's the place where the operator used to stand next to the X-ray machine. So they are extremely exposed to radiation. And now we're thinking if we put a robot in here and our operator can escape from this room, they can be in somewhere else. They can in the control room in the adjacent place, or they can in the centralized hospital, or even in the home environment. And the remote control can be done from the internet-based system, 5G or local area network. So based on this consideration, we developed the world first transesophageal ultrasound robot, which is eye down robot. That means it doesn't change the original structure of the already commercialized transesophageal ultrasound probe. So this probe is a type of endoscope that can go into the patient esophagus and can take ultrasound imaging of the heart. And at the tip of the probe, there's an ultrasound transducer. So what we did is we built a robot. This is the thing that I show at the bottom. So you can put the probe into the system and the robot will take over and it becomes something that you can remote control. So here is a short video. I played the video 3 times fast. So you can see the motion of the robot. This translation about the lung axis, rotation about the lung axis. And we see a mechanism to control the views on the original handle of the endoscope, which you can control the bending of the probe tip. So this is the remote control study from 5G using the robot. Furthermore, we look into whether we can do some, whether we can bring some autonomous into the system. So we look into the wheel planning platform and also the navigation. So the basic concept in here is that before the procedure, we will have the 3D data of the patient from either MR scan or CT scan. And then probably we can use that data to plan where we should place the ultrasound probe in order to do the procedure. And we did some sort of automatic patient adaptation, which means we define those standard ultrasound views in a reference heart. And if there's a new patient comes in, we can register the 2 heart, and we can do some optimization until we found the best location of the probe to see the views. So basically, we try to use the robot and this wheel planning platform to achieve a certain level of autonomous that the robot can automatically come to a certain location which are required clinically. And the test of that was done by sort of experiment using some of the tracking device, for example, the electromagnetic tracking device as a feedback. Then you have this a whole workflow that you put in the pre-scan data and you automatically plan where you can go. And then your robot can automatically bring the probe to the target position under the feedback from the electromagnetic tracking. So if you look at the picture on the right, you can see the blue pictures showing the pre-planned views, and the bottom one shows the real imaging that we acquire. So a very quick summary of this robot. We developed the first prototype. We did lots of wheel planning navigation, and we had quite a lot of publication to support that. The most representative one were published in the IEEE Robotic Automation magazine. We also managed to get involved into the Innovate UK exhibition, and we did a live demonstration to the royal family during the time when they visit to our hospital, St. Thomas. So the bottom right picture shows the Princess Anne from the royal family as we demoed the robot to her. That was the first robot I'm going to introduce to you, the transesophageal ultrasound robot. So now I'm going to introduce the second robot that I developed, which was an early stage fetal scanning ultrasound robot. This is the final rendering imaging of the robot. So the clinical background comes from the early stage fetal screening, and we noticed there's a very strong variation between the abdominal detection rate in the developed area and undeveloped area. For example, if you go to Scotland, probably at the very low level of early stage abdominal detection rate, but this is very different in London. And also because it relies on the operator's experience. It's very operator dependent. So therefore, we had a project called Intelligent Fetal Imaging and Diagnosis, which was supported by Imperial College and King's College and also Philips. So what we did is we developed a 7-degree freedom low-cost portable robot, which is many of the parts were made from 3D printing, and importantly, in this circle, we had 5 degree freedom, 5 joints at the end. They were embedded into a very small distance. This is only about 20 centimeter. And also the total weight of these 5 joint and links are only about 2 kilograms. So what's going to happen is that if there's any failure of the system, if there's any failure on control, sensing, or there's an electrical shutdown, there will be only 2 kilograms on patient body. And also there are some special design into these joints, so they are going to disengage if there are certain force exerted at the end. This is another interesting video that we try to see what we can do with this robot. And this is basically user interface that we provide to the operator who can remotely control this robot. On the left side, you can see the robot is moving. On the right side, you can see a 3D cloud point of the phantom. Basically, before the procedure, we will take a 3D imaging of the patient body, and then this comes into a cloud point. And then we allow the operator to click a certain point, and by registering the robot with the patient coordinate, we can automatically bring the robot to there. And there are certain sensors, for example, force sensor, proximity sensor, that can control the motion of the probe. So the probe. The last robot I'm going to introduce you is a dual probe automatic robot, which was the most recent one that we developed. This is, like I mentioned at the very beginning, is more like an anthropomorphic robot to mimic human motion. The basic concept behind this robot was that Philips provide a new technology that you can use the 2 ultrasound probe at the same time, by putting the 2 imaging together, register the 2 imaging to give you a larger view. So in order to facilitate this type of technology, we developed this 2 probe system, dual arm system, 17 degree freedom, and all customized made. So it can basically do a scan of the whole abdominal area under different type of trajectory. And eventually you are going to acquire like thousands of imagings to the ultrasound imagings, and AI and deep learning will take over to analyze the standard view. So basically this is more like a kind of project that predict about the future, how ultrasound will work in the future, whether ultrasound will become something more like a CT or MR device, which will become something more standardized. So we have already ended up in a more commercialized ready product. And because of the complexity of the system, we need to solve lots of problems. For example, the motion planning, how the robot is going to follow the surface based on the trajectory that you define, how the robot is going to avoid collision as there are 2 probes. The last thing you want to see is the 2 arms colliding with each other. Using this robot, we did about more than 60 volunteer cases performed in St. Thomas Hospital in London. And we had some kind of clinical result that has been formally published. Just a highlight of that, there were no patient safety concern reported, and about 90% of imaging score good or acceptable, which means the robot can acquire the similar kind of quality imaging as the sonographer acquires, and it probably doesn't do better than the most experienced sonographer, but it's very likely that it can it can reach to the level that's above the average, so which is our initial aim, which is to standardize the ultrasound acquisition in a more uniform way. So this is my presentation for today, basically introducing 3 ultrasound robots that we developed in the past years. Medical robots as well, but for today's session, we're talking about medical robotics imaging, so I think the ultrasound robot will be a perfect topic for today. So thanks for your attention again. Thank you.